Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Rob, you're a great advocate of the town of Great Western, as you've mentioned already. We're heading out that way right now. We're going to have a chat to a chap called Ben Thomson. I think I'm right in saying fifth generation family as part of the Best's winery group out there. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing very, very well indeed. Now, we probably should let people know where Great Western is.
I know exactly where it is. It's halfway between bloody Stool and Ararat, and it's got a 60-kilometre zone that drives me crazy. But it's a lovely place.
It starts at 80 k's, then goes to...
Yeah, and that opportunity for the president of the Great Western Tourism Board, can you send the job description through to Rob for us?
Ben, it's good to have you. I'm sure by the end of this conversation I'll feel a hell of a lot better about Great Western than I do now. Interesting name for a little village out in the middle of the Wimmera, but it's pretty clear when you drive through instantly what keeps the town vibrant, because that Best's winery on the hill is a massive, massive building and clearly a massive industry.
I think you got the wrong side of the hill.
That's the Seppel one, isn't it? It's the big. You're the other side.
He's done his research too, which is good.
Flat. Well, on the flat side where all the frosts happen. So.
Oh dear, winery's nightmare.
Yeah, it is a winery's nightmare frost. But just when you were saying Great Western, I think the history goes that it was going to be called the Great Eastern after a train went through 15 years ago.
Okay.
But they said, well, that's a bit silly calling it the Great Eastern when it's in the west, so it ended up being called Great Western.
There you go. That's because I'm doing a podcast where I'm interviewing publicans, and I've spoke to complete mental blank Bruce at the Great Western Hotel, and would you believe the most common beer sold at that pub is Great Northern?
It's a matter of opinion, right?
That's what, as in the beer that they sell the most of. That's what he was telling me, and he said it was really quite funny because there's one bloke in there who comes in and always asks for a Great Western. So it's now known as a black fish. So the history of Great Western goes back, I think, to the 1840s or thereabouts, and I think most people would associate it with wine. But I don't think it would have had its origin in gold. Would that be right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, basically what happened, the miners came first, and then when the mines, the gold started to run out, a lot of people stayed and looked for other work and started farming and all that. And Henry Best, who started Best's, and Joseph Best, basically is the founder of Seppels as well. Best kept it in the family. Henry Best kept it in the family for quite a while, and then we purchased it off him 100 and something odd years ago. And then Seppels has sort of gone into the corporate field, so both wineries have gone in completely different directions. But basically, yeah, it started off after the gold rush, and people were looking for things to do, so the area got more settled with general farming and stock, and grapevines as well.
I'm very keen with the agricultural connection, Ben, to talk about the employment structure, because as the wine industry has grown, because there's grapes all through that region, and I guess a lot of them just grow grapes on contract to you. Does that sort of the way it works? Because
yes.
Yep.
We produce probably 85% of our own fruit, and we buy in some other fruit from the area as well. I'm a bit of a stickler. We have two wine regions. There's the Grampians wine region, which is a GI. A GI is a graphical indicator, so where your wine comes from. So if it says Barossa, it's from the Barossa. And then we have another sub-GI called Great Western. We had a discussion with another company about the name Great Western, and they wanted to keep the name Great Western and use it solely for themselves, and we said, you can't do that. We live in Great Western as well. So they formed another GI, a graphical indicator, inside the Grampians region called Great Western. So for us at Best's, anything that has Great Western on the label, the fruit must come from Great Western. We won't subsidise it with any other fruit from any other region. So we've got a couple of local growers within sort of 5-6 kilometres of where we are that we purchase fruit off as well.
So how far away from you, Avoca, for example, because there's a lot up there, is that in a different region?
That's called the Pyrenees wine region.
All right.
So we're about well, 40 minutes away from Pyrenees. That sort of Pyrenees is sort of I would call the central hub of Avoca.
And it's pretty much the Pyrenees Highway is probably the split point, isn't it? That sort of cuts between the two regions.
Pretty much. Langey's in the Grampians winemakers region, and they're probably on the edge of the Grampians. Then it goes into the Pyrenees wine region.
I tell you what, my mate Shane Gannon won't be very happy with that observation, but that's okay because he's inside that as well.
Ben, I'm very keen on the agriculture again, the changing face of it and employment. The wine industry has grown dramatically in Victoria, so naturally the employment would grow dramatically. So there's been a decline in traditional farming employment as bigger machinery and bigger owners come in and reduce that family connection to farms. But has the growth of the wine industry balanced employment-wise with the other traditional primary production?
Well, employment's up for the wine industry in our area. But it's not significantly up because, like Broadacre, we've had to get smarter and everything to be competitive, to produce our fruit and make our wine and with new technology and all that. But our biggest employment expenses are pruning during the year, and it's very difficult to get pruners. We have a gang of pruners that we use each year, but labour is hard to get out of here. We're sort of isolated wine region. We're not like a Yarra or a Barossa where every neighbour's runs vineyards and everyone knows how to prune. Here, most of our surrounding areas are grain and sheep, so a lot of those people don't really know how to prune. So when you're trying to employ locals and that, there's a lot of training involved in training up pruners and stuff like that.
And it's not an area you can cut back in. Did you see what I did there?
Yeah,
like prune, cut back. I thought it was quite clever.
Yeah, good one, Neil.
Thank you very much. So people, part of the reason we're doing Regional Roundup and having you as a guest today is that we want to encourage people to get out and support the regions. So coming from Melbourne or coming from Geelong, it's probably about the same distance, 2.5 hours or thereabouts?
Yeah, 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on what time you leave, whether you hit the peak traffic coming out of Melbourne on a Friday afternoon or you leave it early and miss the peak. We can sort of 2.5 hours is pretty close. Well, I think we live in a pretty cool spot actually. We're sort of 2.5 hours from Melbourne, 2.5 hours from the coast, sort of 3 hours from the 3 hours from the river.
2.5 hours from Keith in South Australia.
Yeah, we're not far from 2.5 hours from the border, South Australian border, if we're ever allowed to go there again.
And pretty close to some decent wineries. So we've got people listening who are saying, yeah, I wouldn't mind getting up to that part of the world, but they're not big wine drinkers. They want to go and do other things. What else can they do in and around Great Western?
Oh, there's plenty of stuff to do, mate. You head out towards the Grampians, which is a national park. Like when we were kids, we were taken out there every weekend to climb the mountains. There's plenty of accommodation out there, plenty of food, great bush walking. There's a number of lakes around the area as well. There's a number of restaurants. There's Pomona Estate. They're up and running now, which has been good for the last 5 or 6 years. I think they've been going now, and they're going well. And there's, you can head down to Dunkeld as well, to the Royal Mail and places like that, which are all sort of within like Halls Gap from Great Western is about half an hour, 35-minute drive from Great Western. So there's plenty to do. The wineries to do wine tastings. But the Grampians is a beautiful, beautiful spot. I think it's quite underutilised or not recognised, but I think it's getting more and more recognition now because
it certainly seems to be. Ben, we had a house in Halls Gap from 2010 to 2019, and just the extra accommodation that is constantly filling through that region. And you're quite right, there is so much to do. You drive into Halls Gap and you think, oh, it's a quaint little town, there's a mountain, that's cool. But if you really sit down and say, we're going to spend a fortnight here, what can we do? You would not do everything that could be done in that time. And yeah, some of it might be a half hour, 45-minute drive away from your base, but the variety of stuff to do in that neck of the woods is extraordinary. Oh,
it is. It's like you pull out go to the tourist information, you pull out the walking tracks, paper working. Oh my God, there's miles and miles and miles and miles of walking tracks. Some of it easy, some of it hard, some of it intermediate, waterfalls, beautiful springs and stuff like that, fishing, plenty of camping areas and things like that. So no, I think it's a beautiful area. We have, we've got beautiful red gum timber and yellow box trees, nice big timber, rolling hills. I think we live in a pretty lucky spot. You head sort of north a bit and it flattens out and the trees get a bit smaller and stuff like that.
It's a beautiful spot indeed. COVID has changed many people's lives, but being a regular user of that highway, the traffic from Melbourne to Adelaide on cars in my time's been extraordinary. Well, with borders closed, I guess that's had an effect on visitors to your winery, visitors to the township, or you're getting enough out of Melbourne?
Well, we're not getting anyone out of Melbourne at the moment.
No, of course not at the moment, no.
No, at the moment. Look, when the last lockdown opened up, things just went berserk. Everyone was full. No one had enough room in their restaurants, and then another lockdown again. I came back from our other vineyard this morning. I pulled out on the highway and I thought, hang on, am I in Australia? Because I looked up to the left and looked to the right. I didn't see a car on the Western Highway. I thought, hang on, something must have happened while I was out in the vineyard. I come back and didn't see a person anywhere.
This is what the apocalypse looks like.
Yeah, no, the COVID thing has really been quite difficult. I think the most difficult thing is the not knowing. Like everyone who's dealing with the public, do you open up, you go to open up and then you shut down, or how many people are allowed in, or all the rules keep changing, and it is making it very difficult. But everyone's, trying to do the best that they can, and that's the way it is. I feel very sorry for the people with pubs and restaurants and things like that, where they're, told to be allowed to be open, then you've got to shut. So
yeah, just on that, communities are very much a part of Australia, and I guess you live in a tight little one. How's the spirits of people, and are there community leaders who are rising to the occasion to keep everyone up and about?
Yeah, everyone's quite upbeat. We're quite lucky in our little town. To be honest, if we're not allowed to go anywhere. Most houses in Great Western are on an acre, so you've still got plenty of room to wander around. Like for me, I'm fine. I've got 1,000 or 1,500 acres to wander around in, so
and plenty of vines to prune.
Yeah. And there's always something to do. If I can't find anything to do, I'm just not thinking hard enough. So,
just quickly on your industry, the changes. I guess water's important for the grapes. You'd mentioned the frosts. How much could a bad frost or a drought affect your production and quality of production?
A frost could wipe out 100%.
Yep.
We put our Great Western Vineyard in 17, we didn't pick a berry. We had a frost in late November the year before, and it completely wiped out. We had shoots 600 mil long, and on midday the next day they were completely brown, so we lost a whole year.
Oh.
The hard part with our industry is, like, what we make now won't be for sale for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
We're trying to look into a crystal ball and look forward and go, rightio, it's 2021. What will we be selling? How much are we going to be able to sell in 23?
And what will be the trendy flavour that people will want?
Exactly. So we tend to try and stick to the staples, because everyone always eventually comes back to the staples.
A good old Sauv Blanc.
No, you won't get that up there. No, Shiraz. Hey, Ben, we've got to get going. Thanks for being part of Regional Roundup. And all the very best up there for this harvest when it comes, or not this harvest, this growing season, you mean, so?
Yep, yeah, we're just starting to get a bit of woolly bud now, so another couple of weeks.
You can see a doctor about that.
Couple of little leaves coming out in a couple of weeks.
Excellent.
Good. I'll give you a toot when I go through next. In fact, I might even drop in for a coffee.
Drop in. Yeah, do that.
Ben Thomson from Best Wines in Great Western, thanks for your time.
No worries. Thanks, mate.
All the best, mate. Good luck.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.